Listen to a conversation between a student and a professor.
Excuse me, Professor Thompson. I know your office hours are tomorrow, but I was wondering if you had a few minutes free now to discuss something.
Sure, John. What did you want to talk about?
Well, I have some quick questions about how to write up the research project I did this semester about climate variations.
Oh, yes. You were looking at variations in climate in the Grant City area, right? How far along have you gotten?
I've got all my data, so I'm starting to summarize it now, preparing graphs and stuff. But I'm looking at it and I'm afraid that it's not enough. But I'm not sure what else to put in the report.
I hear the same thing from every student. You know, you have to remember now that you're the expert on what you've done. So think about what you'd need to include if you were going to explain your research project to someone with general or casual knowledge about the subject, like your parents. That's usually my rule of thumb. Would my parents understand this?
Okay, I get it.
I hope you can recognize by my saying that how much you do know about the subject.
Right, I understand. I was wondering if I should also include the notes from the research journal you suggested I keep.
Yes, definitely. You should use them to indicate what your evolution and thought was through time. So just set up, what was the purpose of what you were doing, to try to understand the climate variability of this area, and what you did and what your approach was.
Okay, so for example, I studied meteorological records. I looked at climate charts. I used different methods for analyzing the data, like certain statistical tests, and then I discussed the results. Is that what you mean?
Yes, that's right. You should include all of that. The statistical tests are especially important. And also, be sure you include a good reference section where all your published and unpublished data came from, because you have a lot of unpublished climate data.
Something just came into my mind and went out the other side.
That happens to me a lot, so I've come up with a pretty good memory management tool. I carry a little pad with me all the time and jot down questions or ideas that I don't want to forget. For example, I went to the doctor with my daughter and her baby son last week, and we knew we wouldn't remember everything we wanted to ask the doctor, so we actually made a list of 5 things we wanted answers to.
A notepad is a good idea. Since I'm so busy now at the end of the semester, I'm getting pretty forgetful these days. Okay, I just remembered what I was trying to say before.
Good. I was hoping you'd come up with it.
Yes, it ends up that I have data on more than just the immediate Grant City area, so I also included some regional data in the report. With everything else, it should be a pretty good indicator of the climate in this part of the state.
Sounds good. I'd be happy to look over a draft version before you hand in the final copy if you wish.
Great. I'll plan to get you a draft of the paper by next Friday. Thanks very much. Well, see ya.
Okay.
Good morning, everyone. Now in today's lesson, I'd like to talk about population growth and in particular fertility rate. Now, can anyone here define fertility rate?
Is it the number of births in a population measured per 1,000 people per year?
No. That's what we call the birth rate, the number of children born in a year per 1,000 people. No, the fertility rate is the average number of children born per woman in her lifetime, that is, if she lives beyond her childbearing years. Now, do you think the British fertility level is higher or lower than it was, say, 20 years ago?
I think it's lower because these days women are far more focused on their careers than they used to be.
Well, that point is certainly true, but actually, fertility levels in Britain are relatively high at the moment. In 2008, it was 1.96. That means that on average, each woman gives birth to 1.96 children, and in 2009, it was only slightly lower at 1.94. The last time fertility rates were this high was back in 1973. In the UK currently, the highest rate of fertility is in Northern Ireland, where the rate is 2.04, and the lowest is in Scotland, where the rate is just 1.77.
I don't understand. How come fertility rate is going up? Women are just as career-driven these days as they were 30 years ago.
Well, the reason is that during the 1990s, women really started to delay having families, and that was the reason for the decrease in birth rate then. Now those women are in their 30s and early 40s, and they are starting to have families. So that's why the birth rate is going up.
Oh, I see. So it's not actually as if people are actively choosing to have more children than they used to.
Yes, that's right, Charlene. The number of children per family is continuing to fall. Women who are currently in their 70s had an average of 2.4 children. Those in their 60s had 2.2, those in their 50s had 2.0, and the current figure is 1.9. Actually, this figure isn't due to more families choosing to have only one child, although that certainly is occurring. It's mainly because of the increasing number of women who have no children at all. This figure was 1 in 10 among the age group who are now 65, but now 1 in 4 women in their mid-40s are childless.
I heard that the fertility rate in Europe is like really low, 1.3 or something.
That's right, Charlene, it is. It's far below the replacement level. Can you tell me what replacement level means? No? It's the number of births you need to keep the population constant.
Yes, I heard that in France they're trying to get people to have more children. They even give out gold medals if you have 8.
That's right. So we've already mentioned that women are waiting before having children because of their careers. Why else is fertility rate generally decreasing?
I think they have fewer children because they're so expensive. I mean, I heard one report that said it costs £200,000 a year to raise a child here. But I find that difficult to believe. People's standard of living is far higher now than it used to be 100 years ago when families had 8 or 9 kids.
That's very true, but these days people's expectations tend to be higher. Parents want their children to have the best opportunities in life, so they're prepared to pay to develop their children's talents.
Yes, I heard that in China, where they're easing off some of the rules of the one-child policy and allowing some couples to have 2, many parents are still choosing to have 1. They say it's just too expensive. But, I reckon that with all this parental micromanagement that's going on these days, parents only have the time to manage 1 or 2 children.
That's a good point. So now I'd like to look at some different organizations and examine what they believe about the current population issues.